They're vibrant cultural centers, rich with heritage and history, filled with shops, restaurants, and schools. A home away from home for generations, and a gateway into Asian American culture for visitors. Chinese immigrants arrived in California in the mid-1800s in search of gold. But they were not welcome. In 1882, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, restricting immigration to the U.S. This exclusion led to the formation of 83 Chinatowns since the mid-1800s, according to a preliminary analysis by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Chinatowns became safe havens for Chinese families. But now, many are struggling. Experts say Chinatowns nationwide are being endangered by gentrification, lack of investment, and development projects. The lack of affordable housing also forcing longtime residents to leave. On top of that, the rise in anti-Asian hate, accelerating the decline of America's Chinatowns.
Appears that's where you grew up, that apartment?
Yeah, we had to share one bathroom with the entire floor.
Amy Chen Lozano grew up in the Chinatown International District of Seattle. She says crime is a growing concern, and the neighborhood is a low priority for the city.
I couldn't help but notice coming from downtown into Chinatown, there was a marked difference. Yeah. Suddenly, the streets are dirtier. Right. There is graffiti everywhere. Right. Buildings are abandoned. You say that's not by accident.
It absolutely isn't. You can physically see the difference where local government is willing to clean and invest and put their resources into, and where they're not. And where they're not is here. Chinatown is everybody's dumping ground.
Lozano points to projects built or proposed in or near Chinatowns nationwide, including jails, arenas, and homeless shelters that are forcing these enclaves to shrink or move. In Philadelphia, coalitions of Chinatown organizations and allies are protesting a proposed 76ers arena down the street from the famous Friendship Arch.
And it's not just Chinatown residents participating in this march. There are many from the Black and Hispanic communities here to show solidarity.
Longtime activist Deborah Wei has seen this fight before. She grew up coming to Chinatown with her family. She protested against a proposed baseball stadium in 2000 and a casino in 2008 on the edge of Chinatown.
This is a community that's not just special to Chinese, it's special to Asian Americans, and it's special to other immigrants as well. Chinatown is almost like the spiritual and cultural heart of the Asian American community in this region.
Wei has banded together with mom-and-pop businesses and other community leaders in Chinatown to protest the arena. In a statement, the 76ers tell NBC News, "Our team includes leaders in equitable development to ensure the project benefits all communities and does not repeat the mistakes of past development proposals," adding it has committed $50 million to preserve and strengthen all communities around Market East, including Chinatown. Comcast Spectacor, which is part of NBC Universal's parent company, has offered the 76ers part ownership in the Wells Fargo Center, their current home.
That's where the start of the arena is going to be.
Michael Ha owns QT Vietnamese Sandwich. His restaurant is one block from the proposed arena.
If congestion starts building up, they will stop coming to Chinatown because they won't be able to find parking.
Ha believes the businesses here won't survive the projected 5 years of demolition and construction.
I truly believe Chinatown will disappear. I don't think that there's a doubt in my mind that Chinatown will disappear.
In Seattle, a proposed light rail expansion threatens more disruption. The decision won't be finalized until later this year, but it wouldn't be the first time this Chinatown has been significantly reshaped by an infrastructure project.
When this freeway, I-5, was built in the 1960s, it tore right through Chinatown, leaving a lasting impact on the community.
This is the freeway, and you can place it over the map and line up these arrows, and then you can see, like, that's what got torn down.
Wow. Michaela Woodward is a curator at the Wing Luke Museum. On display now, an exhibit by historian Tessa Hulse called Nobody Lives Here. It documents the impact infrastructure projects like Interstate 5 have had on ethnic communities in Seattle.
That we keep putting infrastructure projects here in the neighborhood because we think nobody lives here, because the people who do live here don't speak English, are not able to access the levers of power to get their voices into the conversation.
So really, it's a contradiction nobody lives here is meant to highlight people do live here. They have lives here.
You know, the fact is, if you put 14 lanes of concrete over 3 blocks of a neighborhood, it's loud, it's dark, it's polluted.
Chinatown residents tend to skew older, and language and cultural barriers can be difficult to overcome. But there are some in this community determined to give this often overlooked group a seat at the decision-making table.
I don't know if I told you this.
Betty Lau and Brian Chow are 2 longtime Seattle Chinatown International District residents hoping to do just that.
I call upon you to do the right thing.
They're part of a small but growing group of activists demanding a greater voice on decisions that directly affect their community. Each month, Brian, Betty, and other seniors attend a public hearing for the proposed light rail expansion to ensure that their interests and the interests of their neighbors are heard.
Why is it so important to you to go to these meetings and be involved in the decisions that are made about this community?
For me, it's important to participate. Some of us who have had to learn the hard way, if we don't speak up, we get eaten up alive. That's just the way of the world.
I'm here to protect the people of Chinatown, the residents, and the businesses.
What do they need protecting from?
Well, they need protecting from the people that don't help them or basically try to harm them or ignore them.
Oh gosh, I've been a professor since...
Vivian Louie is the director of the Asian American Studies program at Hunter College in New York.
Why are these Asian cultural centers so important to our communities?
I think they're important to our communities because they constitute a linkage, a lifeline to our heritage, and also to that heritage as it's evolved. There are people who really have a powerful connection to the Chinatowns, and they want them to flourish, and they want them to continue to survive.
Perhaps one of the most famous Chinatowns, New York City. New York City's Chinatown has seen disaster after disaster. 9/11, SARS, Superstorm Sandy, and most recently, the pandemic.
Why have some Chinatowns been struggling and seeing erosion, both after the pandemic and before?
I think that they've been seeing erosion because of the sense of invisibility, which is definitely there. So there is this sense of we, again, need to be heard. We need to be pushing out there. And this was occurring before the pandemic.
Today, 16% of the storefronts in New York City's Chinatown still remain vacant. For business owners, increasing rent and labor supply costs have thinned their profit margins considerably. Aging business owners without succession plans and a decline in customers add to the challenges of keeping these Chinatowns alive.
A recent study looking at the impact of COVID-19 on businesses here found Chinatown lost a quarter of its jobs between 2019 and 2021, a far higher percentage than New York City as a whole. Nearly 60% of those jobs were in food service.
Peter Lee took over his family business, Hop Key Restaurant, which first opened in 1968. Despite receiving pandemic relief funds, Lee says business still has not returned to pre-pandemic levels.
So you've had to cut staffing by half.
Yes.
And also you've reduced your operating hours?
Yes.
He says his biggest challenge is the uncertainty of tomorrow.
Let's just all support our local stores and places and support your neighborhood.
When you talk about this, it's emotional for you. Why is that?
It's just kind of upsetting to see changes in the neighborhood because as a kid, it was thriving.
Now residents fear long-term construction on a new jail in New York's Chinatown will impact traffic, increase pollution, and threaten their very livelihoods. But some business owners are doubling down.
Me and my other partners, my friends since we were 14 years old, we've always kind of had that hustle mentality. We never really went that corporate route.
Corey Ng was born and raised here. He remembers the bustling neighborhood he grew up in. When his family closed his grandfather's Asian produce shop, Ng and his childhood friends transformed the space into Potluck Club, a modern Cantonese-American restaurant.
Did your parents want you to be in the restaurant business?
Of course they didn't. No way. Most Asian American parents with kids that grew up in the 80s and the 90s, it was instilled in them that my kid's going to go to college, and become an accountant, work in finance, doctor, lawyer, whatever.
Ng and his co-founders say they want this generation of Asian Americans to invest in the longevity of Chinatown and help it evolve.
Our generation has to come back to the community and build new businesses and bring new energy, but do something new that's going to last for the next 50 years, the next 75 years.
What is your message to people who appreciate the Chinatowns in their cities, but maybe haven't visited them, haven't supported them, haven't gone there in a while? I think sometimes people take these cultural centers for granted.
Yeah, 100%. If you grew up out here and you do feel that you want to reconnect, yeah, please come back and partake in all the different businesses, all the different cultural events that we do have.
It took like a full, it was a...
Back in Seattle, it's a message echoed by Amy Chen Lozano. Her children, now part of the Chinatown Drill Team and Dragon Boys.
What is your message to folks who care about these cultural enclaves, who care about Chinatown?
I think the problem is that people tend to come out and protest when it's too late. We need to do, and what we should be doing, is fighting for everyday investments, resources, benefits from the local government to keep them from passing us by.
America's Chinatowns at a crossroads of their past and future, learning from a history of persevering through exclusion and marginalization, now energizing the next generation, working to extend Chinatown's legacy and ensure these unique centers thrive into the future. Vicky Nguyen, NBC News, New York.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.